He was just another young black man behind the wheel of a nice car on a quiet night, until red and blue lights lit up behind him and everything changed. What started as a routine stop spiraled into an unrelenting nightmare of humiliation, planted evidence, and systemic abuse, all because he fit the description. No weapons, no record, no crime, just skin, silence, and suspicion. They thought they knew who he was. They thought they could break him. But they had no idea who they were dealing with, or what would happen when the truth finally came to light. If this kind of story hits you hard, make sure to like, subscribe, and share your thoughts in the comments. Where are you watching from? And more importantly, what would you do if this happened to your family? Let's talk about it below. This isn't just a story, it's a warning. Jaden Monroe was on his way home from a late-night coding boot camp. His hoodie pulled over his head, bass-heavy hip-hop spilling softly from the speakers of his matte black Tesla Model S. The rain outside drizzled in streaks across the windshield, neon signs bleeding into the glass like watercolors. He had just turned onto Hawthorne Avenue, a quiet residential stretch in suburban Georgia, when the red and blue lights flared in his rearview. He eased off the accelerator and pulled over, already feeling his pulse spike. He hadn't been speeding. He hadn't even changed lanes improperly. But none of that mattered. Not tonight. Not in this town. Not with that badge. As the cruiser came to a stop behind him, Jaden kept his hands on the wheel, fingers open, visible. His father's voice echoed in his memory. Don't reach. Don't argue. Be polite. Survive. The officer's door opened with a thunk. Heavy boots hit the asphalt. One cop. Then two. Flashlights blinded his mirrors before either man reached the window. The knock came hard, fast, impatient. Driver's license and registration, barked a voice from behind the beam. Jaden complied, moving deliberately slow. May I ask why I was stopped, sir? The flashlight shifted lower, revealing a stern, square jaw and narrowed eyes. The name tag read K. Dorsey. Dorsey didn't answer. Instead, he flicked his eyes around the car interior. This your vehicle? Yes, officer. I bought it last year. Dorsey's lip twitched. Step out of the vehicle. Jaden blinked. I don't understand. What's the problem? The second cop, younger, thinner, his badge reading M. Travis, approached the passenger side. His hand hovered too close to his holster for comfort. Out. Now. Jaden's heart slammed in his chest. His seatbelt clicked. He moved slow, deliberate, his breath tight in his throat. Outside, the night air felt like ice. Dorsey grabbed his elbow. Turn around. Hands on the hood. Wait, what did I? Before the sentence left his mouth. His cheek hit cold metal. Arms wrenched behind him. Cuffs clicked. Jaden winced. You got anything illegal in the car? Dorsey asked as he patted him down. No, sir, Jaden hissed, voice strangled. He could feel the stairs now, curtains parting in nearby homes. A porch light flicked on. Somewhere down the street, a phone camera might be rolling. Or maybe not. It depended on the neighborhood, on who lived here. What's that in your back pocket? Travis asked from behind. My phone, Jaden muttered. Travis yanked it out, squinting at the screen. Ivy League wallpaper. Princeton. Yes. I just graduated. Sure you did, Dorsey sneered. Nice car for a kid your age. Dealer plate, no damage, too clean. Because I take care of my things? Jaden offered, sarcasm slipping through before he could reel it back. Dorsey didn't like that. He shoved Jaden harder against the car. Search it, he snapped to Travis. Probable cause? Jaden asked, voice low, bitter. That was the wrong question. You getting smart with me? Dorsey's face pressed in close, hot breath fouling the air. We stop people like you, because people like you don't belong behind wheels like that at 1 a.m. People like me? Yeah, Dorsey said, eyes gleaming. Hoodie. Beats. Electric car that ain't registered in your name yet. You don't look like a guy with nothing to hide. Travis opened the driver's door, poking around with his flashlight. Nothing in plain sight, he said. But I'm going to check the trunk. This is harassment, Jaden muttered. This is protocol, Dorsey shot back. Unless you want it to get worse. The trunk popped. Jaden flinched at the sound. His mother's groceries from earlier, the reusable bag with almond milk, kale, cereal, were dumped across the black lining. Travis rifled through them with gloved hands, tossing a protein bar to the ground. No weapons. No drugs, he said, annoyed. Maybe he's just a poser. Or a mule, Dorsey replied. Kids like this? Clean fronts. Dirty deliveries. Jaden clenched his fists in the cuffs. Call your supervisor, he said, voice trembling with rage. Dorsey raised an eyebrow. Oh, now you know procedure? Yes. Because I've done ride-alongs. My father. Is he your lawyer too? Travis chuckled. Or just a community activist? Jaden's jaw locked. No, he said, voice flat. He's a retired Delta Force commander. The officers froze for a beat, just a second. But it passed. Dorsey laughed. Cute story. Then he leaned in. But tonight, you're not a soldier. You're not a tech whiz. You're just another punk in the wrong place at the wrong time. Jaden looked past him, eyes scanning the street. A third cruiser was pulling up now. Back up? For what? His heartbeat slowed. Not with fear. With calculation. Because something was shifting. And he'd play the game, for now. But only until the table turned. Jaden Monroe stood still against the cold hood of his Tesla, raindrops gathering in his lashes as Dorsey's grip tightened on the back of his neck. The air was thick with silence, broken only by the occasional hiss of distant tires on wet asphalt and the shallow breath rattling from his lungs. His wrists throbbed from the cuffs, his fingers numb and tingling from the pressure, but his voice remained steady. I asked a question, he said, enunciating carefully through clenched teeth, his breath fogging up in the cool night air. What law did I break? Dorsey didn't respond. Instead, he shoved Jaden's shoulder hard, slamming his chest back onto the metal with deliberate force. Stop resisting, he barked, though Jaden hadn't moved an inch. I'm not resisting, Jaden gritted out, but his words were swallowed by the sound of another patrol car's door slamming shut behind him. Officer Travis, now standing at the open driver's side door, smirked and said, "Looks like we got ourselves a smart one." The two men locked eyes for a second too long. Something in Travis's look saying he didn't see Jaden as a young man with potential, just another problem in a hoodie that needed to be controlled. Check the center console, Dorsey ordered, and Travis obeyed, bending into the car like a scavenger searching for a reason to justify what they were doing. Across the street, a porch light flicked on. Then another. A figure appeared on the sidewalk, a woman in her 40s with a housecoat and slippers, holding a phone up just slightly above chest level. Jaden saw her through the corner of his eye and felt a flicker of hope. She was recording. Someone was watching. But that hope vanished when Dorsey spun toward her, barking, "Ma'am, this is a live investigation. I'm going to need you to step back." She didn't move, only held the phone a little higher. "He didn't do anything," she called out, her voice clear and even. "I saw him stop. He was going slow." Travis straightened, now holding a pair of sunglasses and Jaden's charging cable. "Nothing here," he muttered. Dorsey ignored him. "Ma'am, if you interfere, I will place you under arrest for obstruction." "I'm on my porch," she replied firmly, raising the phone higher. "That's not obstruction." Dorsey turned back to Jaden, who met his eyes without flinching. "You see what you're causing," Dorsey growled, as if Jaden's mere existence was the spark lighting a powder keg. "You people always push it, always try to test limits." "You people," Jaden repeated under his breath. "There it is." Dorsey grabbed him by the shoulder again and jerked him upright. "Say something else," he hissed, face inches away. "Give me a reason." Jaden clenched his jaw, holding the officer's stare. "I don't have to give you anything." Dorsey's nostrils flared. He turned to Travis. "Put him in the cruiser. Back seat." Travis didn't hesitate. He grabbed Jaden by the elbow and guided him roughly toward the patrol car. But when Jaden hesitated at the door, trying to angle his cuffed hands so he wouldn't fall on his face, Travis snapped, "Stop resisting." "I'm not," Jaden tried to say, but before he could finish, Travis slammed a hand into his back and shoved him hard into the rear seat. His head clipped the doorframe, and he gasped from the impact, vision briefly tunneling into a haze of stars. "Did you get that on video?" the woman across the street yelled. "He just hit his head." "Ma'am, last warning," Dorsey snapped, turning to her. Back in your house. She didn't move. 2 more people had stepped out of nearby homes by then, one with a phone raised, the other speaking in hushed tones into what looked like a Bluetooth headset. He was peaceful, one man muttered, a younger guy in a track jacket and slides. Didn't even raise his voice. Inside the patrol car, Jaden sat upright now, breathing hard, blood pounding in his ears. The taste of iron settled on his tongue, and he could feel a warm trickle on his forehead where he'd made contact with the frame. His pulse throbbed in that spot, sharp and rhythmic. He leaned his head back against the seat and stared at the ceiling, trying to block out the chaos, trying to breathe through the pressure in his chest. From the open driver's side window, he heard Dorsey speaking into his shoulder mic. 1055 in progress, possible suspect under influence, requesting backup for combative behavior. Jaden closed his eyes. Combative behavior, he whispered to himself. You slammed me into the damn car. A moment later, the car door opened again and Dorsey leaned in. Where were you going tonight? Home, Jaden replied. From where? Tech course. Downtown. You a student? Graduated. You got ID? In my wallet, Jaden said, voice flat. In the front seat. We'll see about that, Dorsey muttered. He turned and barked at Travis. Check for narcotics. Maybe in the side panels. There's nothing in there, Jaden said. That's my mother's car. Dorsey turned back with a grin that didn't reach his eyes. Moms drive a Tesla? No, Jaden said slowly. I do. That answer landed like a challenge. Dorsey's grin widened. You think this is funny? No, Jaden said coldly. I think it's routine. What? This. The way you profile. The way you escalate. The way you lie. Dorsey's face hardened. Watch your tone. Or what? Jaden said, not flinching. You'll tell dispatch I reached for something? Dorsey didn't answer. He slammed the door shut and walked away. Through the tinted window, Jaden saw him pacing near the front of the cruiser, whispering to Travis. He couldn't hear the words, but their posture told the story. Agitated, animated, planning. Travis gestured toward the trunk, then toward the street. It wasn't about control anymore. It was about cover. Back outside, one of the bystanders, a black man in his 50s, shouted across the street. Hey, we're filming everything. Don't try nothing slick. Dorsey turned sharply. Sir, back inside or you'll be detained for interfering. Interfering with what? The man shouted. We know our rights. Dorsey ignored him and turned back toward the Tesla, hands on his hips. Travis had opened the trunk again and was sifting through the emergency kit, glancing toward the parked cars like he was looking for a witness or a distraction. Jaden sat there, cuffed, jaw tight, his eyes tracing the shape of the dash-mounted camera just above the Tesla's display. Jaden sat rigid in the back of the cruiser, hands cuffed behind his back, blood drying on his temple, while Dorsey continued pacing outside, barking updates into his radio with phrases like non-compliant suspect and possible narcotics involvement, none of which reflected what had actually occurred. Through the side window, Jaden spotted the woman still filming from her porch. Her phone remained steady, the little red recording dot on the screen blinking defiantly in the dark. She hadn't backed down, not when Dorsey warned her, not even when Travis gestured toward her like a threat. But that was about to change. Without a word, Dorsey crossed the street with deliberate steps. The woman, now joined by a teenage boy, stood her ground. Ma'am, Dorsey barked, voice clipped and sharp. I told you to stop recording. The woman lifted her chin. And I told you I'm on my property. Turn it off. Now. No, sir, she said coolly, steady as stone. This is public interest. Y'all ain't about to rewrite this story without receipts. Dorsey reached forward, faster than expected, and in one swift motion slapped the phone from her hand. It hit the concrete and skittered across the pavement before coming to rest near the edge of her lawn. Hey, the teenage boy shouted. You can't do that. Dorsey turned on him like a switchblade opening, eyes narrowed, hand twitching near his belt. Get inside. Now. The boy hesitated, breathing hard, fists clenched. You just broke her phone, he muttered. That's illegal. It's interfering with an investigation, Dorsey snapped. Final warning. The woman stared at the shattered phone in disbelief, her chest heaving. "That was my evidence," she whispered, more to herself than to them. "You just destroyed evidence." Dorsey didn't respond. Instead, he turned back toward the cruiser, his boot grinding a loose shard of the phone into the pavement as he walked. Jayden had seen everything through the cruiser's window, his stomach flipping at the sight. That phone might have been his only chance to prove the truth of what happened here. And now it was gone. Dorsey pulled the driver's door open and slid into the front seat, muttering something into his shoulder mic. Moments later, Officer Travis returned from the Tesla, shaking his head. Nothing in the trunk. No contraband. Not even a damn aspirin bottle. "Run the plates again," Dorsey grunted. "Make sure it's clean." "Already did," Travis said. "Everything matches. Registered to Isaac Monroe." Dorsey frowned. "That the dad?" "Looks like it. Veteran plate, clean record." Dorsey scowled and turned toward the dash cam system on their cruiser. He tapped the touchscreen once, twice. "Camera's been glitching," he muttered. "Says the file's corrupt." Jayden narrowed his eyes in the back seat. "That's convenient." Dorsey didn't even look at him. "Travis, how's your cam?" "Red lights out," Travis said, patting his chest. "I thought it was on." "Battery, maybe." "Yeah, maybe." "You think dispatch caught the call?" "I dunno." Radio felt fuzzy. Jayden leaned forward slightly, voice low and bitter. 3 officers, 3 malfunctioning cameras. One night. What are the odds? Dorsey turned in his seat, finally meeting Jayden's eyes. "Sometimes tech fails. Happens." "Right," Jayden said coldly. "Just like my seatbelt failing to stop me from getting slammed into your car. Just like my phone failing to record you threatening people. Just like your integrity, completely out of service." Dorsey's eyes narrowed. "You're real mouthy for someone in cuffs. And you're real nervous for someone in the right." "Keep talking," Dorsey warned, though the edge in his voice was more rattled than firm. Jayden noticed it. The cracks were showing. The certainty was slipping. And he wasn't the only one noticing. More neighbors had gathered on porches now, whispers swirling, phones raised again. Another cruiser pulled up, lights flashing, but siren silent. A third officer stepped out, tall, stocky, bald-headed, with a silver badge glinting against his chest. His name tag read SGD, Kellis. He walked toward the cruiser with measured steps, eyes scanning the scene, noting the broken phone on the pavement, the scattered groceries in the open Tesla trunk, and the civilians filming across the street. "What's the situation?" he asked Dorsey. Dorsey straightened. "Suspicious vehicle, possible narcotics. Suspect became hostile." Kellis glanced into the Tesla, then at the cruiser. "And you're sure about that?" Dorsey hesitated. He got mouthy. Wouldn't comply. Kellis peered in through the rear passenger window, locking eyes with Jayden. "You injured?" "He hit my head on the frame," Jayden replied flatly. "Cuffed me without cause. Broke a woman's phone for filming." Kellis looked back at Dorsey. "Where's your cam footage?" Dorsey shifted. "Cam glitched. Travis too. Something with the sync." Kellis didn't respond immediately. He walked to the front of the Tesla and peered through the windshield. "That a dash cam?" he asked. "Looks like it." Dorsey's jaw twitched. "Electric vehicles usually record." "Yeah," Kellis muttered, walking toward the driver's side. "Most of them do." "We don't have access to it," Dorsey said quickly. "It's encrypted. Need the owner's login." Kellis tapped the window once, then turned back to Dorsey. "So the suspect owns this vehicle?" Dorsey nodded. "Claims he does. Paperwork matches, but the plate's under his dad's name, Isaac Monroe." At that name, something shifted in Kellis's posture. He straightened slowly. "Isaac Monroe," he repeated. "That the same Monroe from Fort Bragg?" Travis shrugged. "No clue." "I do," Kellis said under his breath. His expression hardened, his eyes narrowing at Dorsey. "You didn't verify before pulling him out?" "He fit a profile," Dorsey said defensively. "Vehicle type, location, time of night." "A profile," Kellis echoed, voice flat. Then he exhaled sharply and stepped aside. "Secure the scene. And don't touch another civilian phone tonight. Not unless you want IA crawling up your spine." "But Sarge, that's an order." Dorsey clenched his jaw but said nothing. retreating back toward the Tesla. Kellis turned back to Jaden and unlocked the rear door. "Sit tight," he said quietly. "We're not done here." As he shut the door again, Dorsey was nervous, Kellis was alert, and the crowd was growing louder with each passing minute. But none of it prepared him for what happened next. Travis emerged from the Tesla's interior, moving fast, eyes darting toward Kellis, who had stepped aside to make a call. In that sliver of a moment, Travis crouched low by the open driver's side door and reached under the seat. Jaden saw it, the quick flash of his gloved hand, the way he tilted his body to block the view. Then came the shout. "Whoa, what the hell, Dorsey?" Travis's voice rang out. "We got something." Dorsey spun around instantly, his expression shifting into something rehearsed, almost gleeful. "What is it?" Travis stood up, holding a small clear bag between two fingers. Inside it, white powder. "Bag of coke," he said loudly enough for everyone to hear. "Under the driver's seat." "You're kidding me," Dorsey said, but his grin betrayed the truth. "Of course," Jaden murmured inside the cruiser, his voice calm but laced with rage. "Now we're planting evidence." "Bingo," Travis added, holding the bag up like a trophy. Across the street, one of the neighbors shouted, "That wasn't there before. You already searched the car." Dorsey ignored him and leaned toward Kellis, who had just ended his call. "Looks like we got a narcotics charge," he said, feigning surprise. "Can't explain it, but there it was." Kellis's jaw tightened as he looked between them. "You searched the car earlier, said it was clean." "Missed it the first time," Travis said, his voice smooth, too smooth. "It was tucked way back. Hard to spot unless you get low." Kellis didn't say anything. He glanced at the growing crowd, then at the Tesla, then back at the bag. "Seal it," he ordered. "Get it logged." Jaden's eyes stayed locked on the bag as Travis dropped it into an evidence pouch, scribbled on a label, and sealed it like clockwork. It was too fast, too clean, too practiced. Dorsey turned toward the cruiser and opened the back door. "Looks like we got a little more than a speeding ticket now," he said, leaning in. "Drug possession, possible trafficking. That's a real problem for someone with your future, kid." "You really just planted that?" Jaden asked, staring at him. "You're willing to lie on your oath just to make this stick?" "Oath," Dorsey snorted. "You think this is a courtroom?" "No," Jaden said quietly. "This is a crime scene, and you just made yourself a suspect." Dorsey's grin vanished, replaced by something colder. He shut the door hard and turned away. Moments later, Travis pulled out a blank arrest form and began scribbling notes. Dorsey dictated beside him like a man building a story. Suspect was combative, refused orders, attempted to flee, had to be restrained, possible assault when I approached the vehicle. "You never even gave me a chance to speak," Jaden muttered, watching them from the window. "And now I assaulted you?" While cuffed. Dorsey kept his back to him, tried to kick, called me a pig, threatened to have me fired. Aggressive posture. All of that's going in. Kellis stood a few feet away, face unreadable. He wasn't writing anything, just listening. Jaden locked eyes with him, silently daring him to say something. But the sergeant said nothing. Not yet. Dorsey took the clipboard from Travis and approached the cruiser. "Sign here," he ordered, shoving it through the open rear window. "What am I signing?" "Acknowledging your arrest. Standard procedure." "You falsified that report," Jaden said flatly. "Every word of it. There's nothing standard about this." "You can challenge in court," Dorsey sneered. "But good luck explaining the coke and your attitude to a judge." Jaden didn't move. "I want my lawyer." "You'll get your call at the station." "No, I want my lawyer now." "You'll wait," Dorsey snapped. "And if you keep talking, I'll tack on obstruction." "I'm already cuffed," Jaden replied. "Obstruction of what?" "My own arrest." "Smartass," Dorsey muttered, walking away again. Kellis turned toward him finally. "You sure about this version?" "Absolutely," Dorsey said. He was mouthy, wouldn't comply. "Resisted when I opened the door." "While cuffed?" Kellis asked, his voice like a scalpel. "You said he was cuffed immediately." Dorsey blinked, then hesitated. He twisted. Made it hard to get him in the car. "Almost tripped me." Kellis nodded slowly. "I'll review it all when we're back." Dorsey didn't respond. Travis cleared his throat. "We ready for transport?" "Yeah," Dorsey said. "Let's get him booked." As the cruiser pulled away from the curb, Jaden sat in silence, every muscle tight with fury, every thought focused on survival. He knew what they'd done. He knew they'd planted the bag. He knew the report was fiction. And worst of all, they thought they'd gotten away with it. But they hadn't. The Tesla had its own internal cameras, cloud-linked, auto-synced. The moment the battery dropped below a certain level, the footage uploaded automatically. And that car had never stopped recording. Not when they searched it. Not when they planted the bag. Not when they smiled for the lie. Jaden leaned his head against the cool glass and whispered under his breath, "Keep talking, officers. The truth's already on its way." The cruiser hadn't been parked 5 minutes before the precinct's outer corridor filled with the sound of heavy, determined footsteps. Isaac Monroe had arrived without warning, without hesitation, and without asking permission. He crossed the concrete walkway, wearing a dark tactical windbreaker over a gray Henley, his steps precise, his posture rigid with the unmistakable poise of someone trained not just to command attention, but to dominate it. As he approached the precinct entrance, one of the young officers stationed outside, the kind fresh out of academy training, still unsure how to read authority when it wasn't wearing uniform, stepped forward with a dismissive smirk. "Sir," he said with the kind of patronizing tone reserved for those assumed to be trouble, "this area's for law enforcement only. If you're lost, there's a bus stop across the lot." Isaac didn't stop. His eyes flicked once to the badge number on the kid's vest, then returned forward. "I'm not lost," he said flatly. "I'm looking for my son." "Okay, well," the officer said, stepping into his path. "This isn't family visitation. You'll need to wait outside." "What's your name, son?" Isaac asked, not slowing down. "Excuse me." "Your name," Isaac repeated. "Because the moment this becomes a formal complaint, I intend to name every officer who obstructed me from reaching my child." "Look, I don't know who you think you are, but you can't come in here barking orders," the officer snapped. "You're not wearing a badge. And you're not earning yours," Isaac said. "Now move." "Sir, I'm asking you nicely, and I'm telling you directly." Isaac stopped, standing within arm's reach. "My name is Isaac Monroe. My son, Jaden Monroe, was just brought here. I want to know why." The officer's expression shifted from annoyance to confusion, then defaulted to something more familiar: superiority. "You're the kid's dad?" he asked, glancing Isaac up and down, noting the plain clothes, the gravel-streaked boots, the weathered edge in his face. "You got ID?" "What I have," Isaac replied slowly, "is a right to know why my son was arrested." "Do you even have a place to stay tonight?" the officer asked, voice lowering. "Because if you're looking for shelter..." Isaac's jaw tightened. "What did you just say?" "Nothing," the officer muttered. "But you're not coming in like this. You'll wait outside, or I'll call someone to escort you off the property." "Do it," Isaac said. "Please. Call someone. I'd love to speak with someone higher up than you." The officer didn't like that. He reached for his radio, but just then, another figure stepped into the vestibule. Younger, less confident. Rookie, by the look of him. He clocked the tension and moved to defuse it, badly. "Hey, what's going on here?" he asked, stepping between them. "He won't leave," the first officer said. "Claims his son's in custody. We can't verify that." Isaac turned toward the second officer, voice steady. "My son is Jaden Monroe. He was arrested 30 minutes ago on Hawthorne Avenue. I'm here to confirm his well-being and request a report." "Sir, we can't share that kind of information." "You can," Isaac corrected. "And you will." The second officer hesitated, then glanced at the first. The first rolled his eyes. "You want to play hero, go ahead," he muttered. "But if he steps past that door, it's on you." "Nobody stepping anywhere," the rookie said quickly. Let's all take a breath." Isaac folded his arms. "That's fine. You take your breath. I'll take my answer." "Sir, you need to calm down." "I am calm," Isaac said. "You've seen me angry?" He stepped forward slightly. "You wouldn't be standing." That was when a third officer appeared from the hallway. A lean, anxious man barely out of his 20s, badge-reading Riggins, with a twitch in his jaw that suggested he was more nervous than trained. He clocked Isaac immediately and reached for his duty belt. "Sir, back up," he barked. I said back the hell up. Isaac raised both hands, palms out. I'm not armed. I'm not here to fight. I just want to know what's happening with my son. I don't care what you want. Riggins shouted, voice cracking as he fumbled with the cap on his pepper spray. You're not authorized to be in this building. Listen to me, Isaac said. I am his father. I'm not leaving until someone explains. But the rest of the sentence never left his mouth. Riggins fired the spray. A sharp hiss burst through the air as the canister expelled a stream of burning mist into Isaac's face. It hit him across the left cheek, catching part of his eye and flooding his sinuses with chemical heat. Isaac winced but didn't retreat. He staggered one step back, blinking fast, breathing through the pain, refusing to give Riggins the satisfaction of seeing him drop. What the hell did you just do? Someone yelled from down the hall. He wasn't even threatening you. He was aggressive. Riggins barked back. He advanced, with his hands up, a fourth voice snapped, this one deeper, calmer, and clearly in command. Are you blind? But Isaac wasn't focused on the voices. He wiped his burning eye with the sleeve of his jacket and straightened his spine. Even through the blinding pain, his voice stayed low even. I told you, he said quietly, through clenched teeth. I just want to know what's happening to my son. Officers around him froze, uncertain whether to restrain him, apologize, or vanish altogether. One finally made a move. A sergeant older than the others came into view, his face pale, lips thin, voice controlled. Get him to the washroom, he ordered quietly. Flush his eyes. Now, Riggins started to object, but the sergeant cut him off with a look that turned his knees to rubber. Isaac didn't resist when another officer approached with a towel and gestured toward the hallway. He followed, breathing steadily, saying nothing. He didn't need to speak. Not yet. He already knew what was happening, and he knew the fight wasn't out here. It was inside, behind those locked doors and one-way windows. At that very moment, inside processing room 2, Jaden sat cuffed to a metal bench bolted into the floor. His back ached from the tension, but his expression hadn't cracked. Across from him, a detective in a beige shirt too tight across his belly leaned against the wall, arms folded, eyes narrow with forced calm. So here's how this works, the detective said. You cooperate, things go smooth. You play tough guy, things drag out. Nobody wants that. Jaden didn't answer. The detective gestured toward a clipboard on the table. This is your statement. Standard stuff. You acknowledge the stop, the search, the evidence. You admit the powder's yours. The powder that wasn't in my car until your guy reached under the seat? Jaden said. That powder. Watch your mouth, the detective snapped. You think you're smart? I think I have the right to legal counsel before I sign anything, Jaden replied. Funny, the detective said, smirking. Because right now I don't see a lawyer sitting here. I requested one, Jaden said. 3 times. And it'll happen, the detective said. But you know how it is. Paperwork, processing, delays. Could be hours, could be more. Meanwhile, you're stuck in here, cold bench, no water, no food, no one coming to help. Unless, of course, you help yourself. He pushed the clipboard across the table. 1 signature, 1 pen stroke. You're out of the holding tank and into a court date. Otherwise, you're sitting in county for 72 hours minimum. Jaden didn't touch the clipboard. I'm not signing a confession to something I didn't do. It's not a confession, the detective lied. It's just acknowledgement. Then why won't you let me read it? Jaden asked. Because you're not a lawyer, the detective said. And you don't need to overthink it. You sign it, we process it, you walk out. Jaden shook his head slowly. No, I'm not playing your game. The detective's face darkened. You think you're going to win this? You think your attitude is helping you? I think my car recorded everything, Jaden said calmly. I think your officers didn't realize my dash cam runs cloud sync with redundant backups. And I think when the right people see that footage, this whole thing burns down around you. The detective stared at him. Then he scoffed. You really don't get how this works, do you? He opened the door and gestured to someone outside. Another officer stepped in, whispering something into his ear. The detective nodded, then turned back to Jaden. Your father's here, he said. Apparently caused a scene. Got himself sprayed. You know what that tells me? Hothead runs in the family. You don't know a damn thing about my father, Jaden said. You're right, the detective replied. I don't. And neither will the press, because nobody outside this building's gonna hear about any of this. He walked to the wall, where a small camera was mounted near the ceiling. He reached up and flipped a switch beneath it. The red light clicked off. Internal only, he said. Just us now. Outside the interview room, 2 higher-ranking officers stood in a small office across the hall, one in uniform, the other in plain clothes with captain's bars on his collar. The plainclothes officer, Captain Harlan, held a thick folder and a half-empty coffee cup. We got a problem, the uniformed officer muttered. The kid's smart, knows about cloud storage. His dad's ex-military, real sharp. And the whole thing's got neighborhood eyes all over it. Harlan didn't blink. Then contain it. How? They're already talking out there. Then shut it down, Harlan snapped. Keep the report sealed. No public disclosure without chain of command approval. And no damn press leaks. What about the evidence discrepancy? Buried, Harlan said. No chain of custody log for that bag. You tell Internal Affairs it was a procedural glitch. Blame Travis. He's green, he'll eat it. And the dad, the officer asked. He's asking questions. Pushing hard. Harlan took a slow sip from his cup. Let him push. Let him yell. But keep him out of the back. No civilian access to the holding wing without clearance. That won't hold for long. Then stall, Harlan said. You got enough forms in that drawer to bury a cruise ship. Use them. The officer hesitated, then nodded. Understood. Back in the room, the detective returned to the table. Last chance, he said. You don't sign, you go into holding. You sit with 6 guys who'd love a fresh face. That what you want? Jaden stared at the blank form, still untouched, still unread. You're bluffing, he said. No, the detective replied. You're betting on a system that was built to fail you. Jaden leaned forward slowly, eyes locked on his. Then I guess you forgot to check who built me. The fluorescent lights above him buzzed with a maddening hum, and the air had long gone stale, thick with the scent of dried sweat and stale coffee. He'd lost track of time after the 5th hour, maybe the 6th. They had taken his watch, his phone, and any sense of reference, leaving only 4 blank gray walls and a door that opened only when someone came to threaten, manipulate, or berate. No food had been offered. No water. No phone call. Every time he asked for his lawyer, they deflected. He's not available. Or you're not being charged yet. But still they kept him chained like a criminal, as if the absence of formal charges gave them permission to act without consequence. At hour 8, a second detective entered the room. A tall, pale man with a drooping mustache and tired eyes who didn't say his name, only dropped a thick folder onto the table and sat across from Jaden like they were longtime adversaries. Let's talk, he said, without preamble. You want to make this easy? Jaden said nothing. The detective opened the folder with a theatrical sigh and began flipping through pages. I read your file. Princeton. Honors in software engineering. Internship with a defense contractor. Daddy's money paid off, huh? Still, Jaden said nothing. You think you're above this, the detective continued. Think just because you speak well and dress clean that you don't end up in a cell like everybody else who looks like you? Jaden blinked slowly, his lips chapped now from hours without water, his voice rough but clear. I'm not answering anything until my lawyer's present. Oh, you're one of those, the detective said, chuckling without humor. Let me break this down for you. Right now, you're not under arrest, technically, which means you don't get Miranda. But you are detained, indefinitely, until we figure out who you really are and why you were holding. Holding what? Jaden rasped. The bag your partner planted? Watch your mouth, the detective snapped, suddenly slamming his fist on the table. Jaden didn't flinch. You'll hit a desk, he said. But not me. Not with cameras rolling. You think that makes a difference? The detective asked, voice rising. You think body cams change anything in here? We control what gets uploaded. Not mine, Jaden whispered. My Tesla's already online. Everything that happened on that street is sitting in a server you can't touch. The detective leaned back, his expression shifting slightly. Then he stood and walked out without another word. The door slammed behind him, and once again silence reigned. Minutes turned into another hour, then another. The temperature dropped slightly. The lights grew harsher. The hunger clawed at Jaden's stomach, but worse than that was the thirst. His lips cracked when he tried to wet them. His throat burned when he tried to swallow. He slumped forward at one point, eyelids drooping, and jolted awake when the door creaked again. This time, it wasn't a detective. It was Officer Dorsey. He walked in with the swagger of someone who thought the game was already won. "Still awake?" he asked. "Impressive. Most people cave after 6 hours. You've made it 12. That's commitment." Jaden didn't speak. Dorsey stepped closer, standing over him, looking down like a warden surveying a prisoner. No lawyer, no food, no sleep. Just you, the walls, and the realization that none of this is in your control. He crouched to Jaden's eye level, smirking. "You think this is about right and wrong? About truth? This is about power. And we have it. You don't." Jaden lifted his gaze slowly, unblinking. "You're afraid," he said. "That's why you're still here. Afraid." Dorsey laughed. "Boy, the only thing I fear is paperwork." "You're afraid," Jaden repeated, "because the truth's already out there. You don't know how fast or how wide. You're guessing, panicking, trying to break me before it breaks you." Dorsey stood up, voice hard now, louder than before. "You think that car of yours changes anything? You think money or degrees or your daddy's war medals matter in here?" He leaned down again, face inches from Jaden's. "You think having money means you can get away? We run this game." Jaden didn't flinch. "That's the difference between us," he said. "You play games. I solve systems." Dorsey grabbed the collar of Jaden's shirt and yanked it forward just enough to make a point. But before he could speak again, the intercom crackled. "Unit 2, report to command." Now, Dorsey held his grip for a beat longer, then shoved Jaden back against the chair and exited, slamming the door so hard the wall trembled. The silence returned. But now, Jaden smiled to himself, faint but certain. His boots barely made a sound on the floor, but the silence in the room changed entirely. Jaden blinked, trying to focus his vision through the ache in his eyes and the fatigue clawing at his spine. Then he saw the face. Familiar, steady, and dangerous to the wrong people. "Dad," Jaden croaked. Isaac Monroe didn't answer immediately. He stood a few feet from the table, watching his son with a gaze so sharp it could cut steel. Then he reached into the interior pocket of his black jacket and pulled out a worn leather ID case. Without a word, he flipped it open and placed it face up on the table, the metal seal of the Department of Defense gleaming beneath the overhead light. "Colonel Isaac Monroe," he said, his voice low but unmistakably authoritative. "Delta Force 6 Alpha designation. Serial 25499 Echo Bravo." He glanced at the security camera in the corner, already aware it was still powered down, then turned back to his son. "Who signed your intake form?" "They wouldn't let me see it," Jaden replied. "Didn't give me food, water, or a lawyer. 12 hours. Isaac's face didn't twitch. He absorbed the information in silence. "Anyone physically touch you?" "They shoved me into the cruiser," Jaden said. "Hit my head. No medical check." Isaac nodded once. His eyes turned toward the door just as it opened again. Captain Harlan stepped into the frame, shoulders squared, face tight with the kind of forced confidence that came from years of managing scandal. "Colonel Monroe," he said stiffly, not offering a hand. "You're out of your lane." "No, Captain," Isaac replied without looking at him. "You're out of yours." Harlan glanced at the ID still sitting on the table. "That doesn't give you jurisdiction here." "No," Isaac agreed, "but it gives me access. And believe me, the people I report to will have jurisdiction over you by morning." Harlan's lips pressed into a thin line. "We were handling this internally by torturing a suspect without due process," Isaac said, finally turning to face him. "By violating the Sixth Amendment, falsifying a drug charge, and denying access to counsel? Tell me, Captain, what part of that is protocol?" "Your son was acting suspiciously. There were drugs found in the vehicle. Planted. Isaac interrupted. On video. Multiple angles. Uploaded in real time to a secure server connected to a classified architecture I helped design. Harlan stiffened. You're bluffing. Am I? Isaac pulled out his phone and held it up. The lock screen glowed with a military encryption code that Harlan didn't recognize. But the symbols on the corner were enough to confirm it wasn't a civilian app. The moment he was stopped, his vehicle triggered a flag. That flag alerted me, and 3 other names you'd recognize from D.C. The footage is timestamped, uploaded, and already under review by someone far above your pay grade. Harlan's face began to pale. There's protocol for this, he muttered. We can review internally. You reviewed nothing, Isaac said. You lied. You covered. You let officers violate civil rights, and you enabled a culture that thinks the uniform makes you untouchable. But here's the thing, Captain. Your uniform isn't armor. It's evidence. Are you threatening me? Harlan asked, voice brittle. No, Isaac said. I'm reminding you. I once led a strike team into Kandahar to pull 6 hostages from a kill zone under 12-minute assault fire. Do you know how we succeeded? Not with brute force. With discipline, honor, integrity, values your officers pissed on tonight. Harlan took a step back. This is being blown out of proportion. Blown out of proportion? Isaac echoed, his voice rising ever so slightly, just enough to fill the room. You kept a Princeton graduate with no priors in a concrete box for 12 hours without representation, tried to break him, and then dared to spray his father in the face like he was some angry vagrant. Harlan didn't speak. He couldn't. Isaac stepped closer, his voice dropping back to a lethal calm. You ever wonder what happens when the people you step on have more reach than you assumed? When the man you thought you could ignore spent 30 years building alliances across multiple branches of the United States military. Because that's what's happening right now. We can fix this quietly, Harlan said, sweating now. You're too late, Isaac said. I'm not here to negotiate. I'm here to document. You still think this is about race or attitude or a disrespectful suspect. But this was never about that. This was about abuse of power. And I've buried men for less. At that moment, a call crackled over the precinct intercom. Captain Harlan, Line 4, priority override. Pentagon line. Harlan froze. His eyes darted toward Isaac, then toward the phone on the hallway desk. Isaac didn't move. You should answer that, he said. It's one of mine. Harlan moved slowly toward the desk, picked up the receiver with a trembling hand, and pressed the blinking button. Captain Harlan speaking, he said, voice barely above a whisper. There was a pause on the other end, a silence so deliberate it dripped with warning. Then a clipped, authoritative voice responded, calm but with the unmistakable cadence of federal power. This is Deputy Director Karen Voss, Department of Defense, Office of Internal Oversight. You are hereby instructed to immediately stand down all proceedings related to detainee Jaden Monroe and release him into the custody of his father, Colonel Isaac Monroe, effective immediately. Harlan opened his mouth to object, but the voice cut in again before he could shape a sound. Failure to comply within the next 5 minutes will result in federal obstruction charges, forced seizure of precinct assets, and a full audit of officer conduct dating back 2 years. Are we clear? Why, yes, ma'am, Harlan stammered. The line went dead. He stood for a moment, gripping the phone like it might anchor him to something stable, before setting it down with a hollow clack and turning back toward Isaac, who hadn't moved an inch. Wheel, he began, but Isaac simply tilted his head, and Harlan stopped talking. Instead, he raised a hand toward the nearest officer and barked, "Get Monroe out of processing. Now." Within seconds, the station turned electric. Doors opened, boots moved quickly over tile, and murmurs spread like gasoline on fire. By the time they uncuffed Jaden and led him into the hallway, half the station had gone silent, officers lining the walls like ghosts. Jaden walked beside his father with quiet dignity, his spine straight despite the soreness, his hands slightly raw from the hours of restraints. He didn't say a word. He didn't need to. The weight of justice was shifting, and they could all feel it. But the real storm hadn't even landed yet. That came 6 minutes later, when the front doors of the precinct flew open and 4 federal agents stepped inside in matching dark suits, each carrying a black folder and wearing expressions that left no room for doubt. The lead agent, a tall black woman with short cropped hair and a badge clipped cleanly to her lapel, approached the front desk like she owned the place. "I'm Special Agent LaSalle, Department of Justice, Civil Rights Division," she announced. "We have a sealed federal warrant for immediate review of all arrest records, body cam footage, evidence logs, and surveillance data associated with Incident ID 9A22 Hawthorne. Effective now." Harlan stepped forward. "This is highly irregular, so is falsifying reports, denying legal counsel, and gassing a Tier 1 combat veteran in your own lobby." LaSalle replied coolly. "Don't push me." She handed over the folder. Harlan took it reluctantly, scanning the pages as sweat formed at his temples. Behind her, 2 more agents moved past him without a word, heading down the hall with a laptop and a portable scanner. "We're also here to execute internal detainment orders," LaSalle continued. "Officers Dorsey, Travis Riggins, and anyone else directly named in the Monroe arrest affidavit are to be placed on administrative hold, effective immediately, and escorted off-site for federal inquiry." "You can't just walk in and," Harlan began, but another voice cut him off, not from the room, but from the hallway behind. "Oh, they absolutely can." All eyes turned to see the tall, broad silhouette of General Marcus Leland, Joint Special Operations Command, retired, striding in through the now open precinct doors, dressed in civilian clothes, but carrying the aura of command like a second skin. "And you should be glad they're the ones doing it," Leland said. "Because if it had been me, I wouldn't have come through the front." He stepped beside Isaac and gave a small nod. "Good to see you again, Colonel." "Likewise, sir," Isaac replied. "Appreciate the backup." "Always," Leland said. The second the name Monroe hit our net, phones started ringing from 6 different agencies. "You and your son aren't just respected, you're protected." Harlan looked like he might collapse. "You people don't understand. This was just protocol." He looked suspicious. "The car, the neighborhood, the time of night. You mean he was black in a Tesla?" LaSalle asked. "You profiled him, harassed him, fabricated a charge, denied him counsel, and then assaulted his father in the lobby. That's not protocol. That's persecution." "We're going to sue," Harlan said weakly. "We're going to contest all of this." "You're going to sit down and shut up," LaSalle said. "And then you're going to watch what happens when your crimes hit daylight." As if on cue, a phone buzzed behind the front desk. Then another. A ripple of vibrations moved across the station as devices lit up in unison. One officer glanced at his phone and blanched. "Sir," he whispered to Harlan. "It's online." "What is?" "The footage," the officer replied. "Tesla dashcam. Full arrest. Someone leaked it. It's trending already." Harlan rushed around the desk and stared at the monitor. A news network had picked it up, national coverage. The headline read, "Breaking. Video shows police planting drugs on Black college grad." The footage was clear. High-res. Time-stamped. The moment Travis ducked under the seat. The bag that didn't exist 10 seconds before. The shove into the cruiser. The smirk. The broken phone. The spray to Isaac's face. It was all there, and the internet had seen it. Isaac turned to Jaden. "Ready to go home?" Jaden nodded. "Yeah," he said softly. "But this isn't home anymore. Not until we fix it." Isaac's hand rested on his son's shoulder. The fallout began within hours, not days. As the footage from Jaden's Tesla continued to circulate across every major news outlet and social media platform, the national conversation exploded into a firestorm. Hashtags trended for 72 consecutive hours. Politicians issued hollow statements, and civil rights attorneys flooded the county with requests for records. But inside the Fulton County precinct, the reckoning had already begun. Captain Harlan, once the untouchable face of command, was escorted out of the building he'd ruled for nearly a decade, his badge, firearm, and access credentials stripped in front of his entire staff. He didn't argue. He didn't plead. He just walked, head down, a man unraveling beneath the weight of his own hubris. Less than 24 hours later, federal prosecutors held a press conference outlining the charges: evidence tampering, conspiracy to obstruct justice, deprivation of civil rights under color of law, and falsification of legal documents. The maximum sentence exceeded 15 years, and based on the federal tone, they intended to seek every one of them. Officers Dorsey, Travis, and Riggins were named as co-defendants, their mugshots circulating in the same cycle as their prior commendations, painting a chilling picture of men who had long abused their authority with impunity. The footage revealed everything: the false stop, the planted drugs, the assault, the lies, the smug arrogance of men convinced they'd never be caught. And now they were. The district attorney's office, under mounting pressure, launched a top-down review of every arrest those officers had made in the past 5 years. Cases were reopened, charges dropped, settlements negotiated, but none of it reversed what had happened to Jaden. He hadn't just been wronged. He'd been violated, dehumanized, nearly broken by a system designed to protect itself before it protected the truth. Yet when reporters flooded his family's driveway days later, microphones in hand, lenses hungry for a soundbite, it wasn't rage or revenge they found, it was resolve. Standing beside his father on the steps of their home, Jaden faced the crowd with clarity in his eyes and calm in his voice. "I don't want money," he said. "I don't want to settle. I don't want to be remembered as the guy who sued and disappeared. I want change. Real, structural, local change." He held up a stack of papers, the corner clipped and tagged. "This is a proposal drafted with the help of veterans, attorneys, former prosecutors, and policy analysts. It's a full accountability model for Fulton County PD. It includes civilian oversight, mandatory body cam audits, anti-bias training, and disciplinary transparency for every officer in uniform. No more internal secrets. No more cover-ups. No more unchecked power." One of the reporters leaned forward. "What makes you think they'll accept it?" Jaden smiled faintly. "Because the eyes of the nation are on them. Because the people who stood on the sidewalk that night now have a voice. And because the last time they ignored me, they made a mistake they'll never recover from." Isaac, standing quietly at his side, placed a hand on his son's shoulder but said nothing. It wasn't his place anymore. He had fought his war. Now it was Jaden's. In the weeks that followed, momentum surged. Community leaders rallied behind the proposal. Activists organized town halls. Former officers, disgusted by what had been exposed, stepped forward to endorse reform. Within 60 days, the county council passed a motion to overhaul its oversight board, increase transparency protocols, and install independent monitors at every precinct in the region. It wasn't perfect. It wasn't immediate, but it was real. And it started with one traffic stop. Jaden returned to his work in tech, but he never returned to silence. He became a speaker, an advocate, not because he sought attention, but because he understood the stakes, and because he had survived the kind of darkness that too many others didn't. One evening, several months later, he and Isaac stood on the rooftop of a downtown building overlooking the skyline, the lights of Atlanta stretching out like a constellation of second chances. "You proud of me?" Jaden asked, voice soft. Isaac didn't answer right away. He looked out at the horizon, then turned to his son. "I was proud before this ever happened," he said. "But I'm proud of how you chose to respond. You didn't just win. You changed something. That's the difference between surviving and leading." Jaden nodded, his eyes drifting back toward the city. Below, the streets pulsed with life, some still broken, some still unfair, but all a little more aware. Because of one voice that refused to be silenced. Because of one truth that refused to stay buried. And because justice, once awakened, doesn't sleep again so easily. The end. If this story moved you, don't forget to like and subscribe for more powerful content that exposes injustice and fights for what's right. What part of the story hit you the hardest? Was it the wrongful arrest, the abuse of power, or the moment the truth finally came out? Where in the world are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments. We'd love to know how far this message is reaching. And tell us, what would you have done if this was your family? Let's talk about it in the comments below. Justice doesn't start in courtrooms. It starts with people who refuse to stay silent.